Hello everybody, this is Hero. This is my New Game Plus Demon Souls Soul Level 6 Pure Black World Tendency playthrough. I have to keep remembering to call it that because, Jesus Christ, it's a long title. This is Stonefang Tunnel. This is the second world, and this is just the first Archstone, which means we'll be going up against Armor Spider soon, a boss that I had to completely relearn in order to do this. Which was, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, I had trouble with Tower Knight because in my first playthrough on Soul Level 6, if he hit me, I still didn't quite die in one hit. It depended what attack he did, but I still never actually died in one hit. So what had to happen was every time I got hit, because I just wanted to get through to the end and then move on to the New Game Plus run that I wanted to record, I'd just use grass, which means that I'd never actually learn how to fight the boss without taking damage, which was both a blessing and is also a curse as well, because for this playthrough I needed to learn how to fight, but I guess I had more fun learning how to fight them in the second half than getting discouraged partway into my first playthrough because I just couldn't cut it. So what you just saw me do was activate hyper mode off one of the dudes with the bare fists. Thankfully I've got the buckler, so I didn't have to ration out which attacks I had to take in order to do stuff with the slave shield, because the slave shield, as I mentioned in the last video, only had a 70% block, and the buckler luckily has a 90% block, and there is nothing in between as far as I'm concerned. There's no weapons that have, I think, over 65% physical block when you two-hand them, and there are no shields that are between 70 and 90% physical block. There's only 90, 70, I think 65, and then some ridiculous ones like 40. Don't quote me on that though, because I'm not exactly a Demon Souls expert. So at the moment So just then I just took out a dog that was hiding in the doorway behind some pots, and what happens here is the pots are meant to disguise a enemy spawn when you walk through this door, because when you walk through, all of a sudden 2 more dogs will pop up. See, I'm looking for them now, but they're not there. There's a fat minister in there that's just turned around. So what I do is come on. Yeah, just walk forward, and there they just pop up out of nothing. So the pots are meant to just keep you from knowing that they have to spawn in at a later date. And I'm not entirely sure why they had to spawn in then, but I guess I'm not a games designer and I don't know the ins and outs of these sorts of things, so you should probably just not listen to me anyway. And at the moment, truthfully, I'm a little shocked that anyone's listening to these videos, and some of you seem to be enjoying them, which is much better than I thought they'd be received. I have to again thank Warchild V1 recently. I did a Battle of the Uploaders in Dark Souls with him, even though I am such an insignificant channel compared to him, and he brought me at least, I think, 12 or 13 subscribers in basically the span of a couple days, which is, if you take a look at my subscriber number now, that is basically a 20% growth of my total subscribership in one day, which is absolutely fantastic. So I have to thank him again, and I'm sorry if this bothers anyone, but the dude needs to know how much I am grateful. And of course I have to thank the people that actually subscribed, the people that were those 12 or 13 people, and of course the people who had already subscribed before that. So thank you, all of you. This has just been my little sappy thank you, love you guys. Right, so we're going to move on. Just then I died to one of the pickaxe miners who I knew was hiding in the door, but I didn't expect for him to come out of the door with his pickaxe actually in the motion of attacking, so I ended up copying a pickaxe to the face. So there was just a quick crossfade there, and I managed to kill him off. Now, walking along here, this area is perfectly safe to navigate just without even taking care of the Fat Minister, or the Fat Official, or whatever the fuck you want to call him. Everyone seems to have a different name for him. So what I do, like what I do with the Fat Ministers later on in the game, is I just hit him with a few arrows from afar, and then I never have to worry about him again. And what happens now is, just down there you can see a ghost operating the lever just down here, and as I've explained in a previous video, I play in offline mode, so this is one of the developer ghosts, one of the ghosts designed to help the player to know where to go and what to do, because From Software don't always put things that are really vital right in the spotlight, and I think they also wanted to make sure that this place actually looked and felt like a genuine mine in the Stonefang Tunnel. So this isn't God of War, basically. There's no grand fucking architecture surrounding a plinth and an altar, and atop the altar is a lever, and you have to push 80,000 different buttons in order to get to turn around, and then you get a nice cinematic camera angle to show you what's been done. It's just, this is a lever down in the corner, and they needed to show you how to get to it. How to operate it, and then they just did that through the ghost, which was a nice mercy of them. And Stonefang Tunnel is a bit confusing on your first time through, because you feel like there should always be a ladder or a set of stairs back up to where you were, because every time you activate something, you just seem to take steps down and you can't actually get back up again because the ledge is just a little bit too high. And it's one of those gamey elements where you realize that you really notice the lack of a jump button, because by all accounts, your character should be able to jump, grab onto a ledge, and just climb up a little bit, but instead of that you have to drop down a couple other ledges, then come back the way you came initially to come across this bridge to this gate, which has now been opened. Which I don't necessarily mind, because the developers can't give the player like complete and total utter free reign within the game world. They can't just let them do whatever the fuck they want, generally speaking, because I remember playing the first Deus Ex on PC, and I used to be able to just stack a couple of boxes up where I wasn't supposed to go, and then jump over some fence or wall, and or over a door that was only so high, and I'd end up falling through the rest of the map because the developers basically hadn't thought of what you could do if you let the player jump and stack and move objects and then jump onto those objects. So it's just that sort of thing that happens. And right there we just saw this guy is the best unintentional dodger ever. Just watch him. Lifts his elbow, turns around. Jesus Christ. This guy's pretty good as well, but he's a bit of a retard because he just starts doing the moonwalk on steps as well. And this fire pit, you have to start a water pouring a water mill, and it'll pour down and turn the lava into rock, just solid rock that you can walk over. And I saw Emerald just completely skip the rest of this level by using Water Veil and I think the Ring of Flame resistance to get enough fire resistance that when he jumped down into the pool and rolled a couple times, he took just under his max health in damage getting to the other side, and then he could just run and take on Armor Spider, which is pretty ingenious. But I always find after doing it this way, I think it's a little more hassle than it's worth, but I think Emerald just kind of wanted to not die as often as possible. I say, right as I die to that guy who I forgot was around the corner completely. So here I come with my S-Stock, and my clever rat ring, and then I just decide, right, okay, I'm going to bitch poke him, because if you don't know, the rapier class weapons and the spears and the S-Stock, which I'm using right now, you can attack while you hold your shield up, which means that you can take a hit and deal damage at the same time. And if the enemy attack doesn't have any auxiliary elements like fire or magic or whatever, then that means that you can just attack them without penalty, and usually you'll get counter damage on them as well. And I will say this for Demon Souls, as opposed to Dark Souls, this place looks fantastic. Not necessarily graphically, because it's an older game and it's a bit glowy and the textures are a bit iffy in places, and generally things are just a little bit hazy. But this is a workshop. This is a place that's got things scattered around. There are tools. There are furnaces. There's all this lovely stuff just laying around, and even this view here, you can see the watermill working, and there's places where they're mining rocks and ore, and those guys can throw huge boulders. But this feels like a place that works. This is a place that something actually goes on here. This is a place in the world where something feasibly happened before you got there. It wasn't just dead. And in Dark Souls, I honestly can't think of an area that looked like it had a purpose before it was filled with enemies. Because Lost Izalith, I know that place was mostly destroyed by lava, but there's nothing there. There was a few buildings. There weren't any chairs or anything around. There was nothing there. There's Undead Berg, which is probably the most lived in looking area there, because it had some beds and benches and pots and just some general stuff that goes on that generally you see inside houses, and that just didn't seem to happen all that much in Dark Souls. There wasn't an awful lot of purpose to the areas that you went in, because I think they tried to go with a dead world, in the sense that you don't really belong here, because this is Lordran. This is the place where undead go to take care of these otherworldly beings and the lords and everything, that sort of a thing. Humans exist only because the lords want them around. And Demon Souls was a little bit different, because Demon Souls, these are areas that hold together Boletaria, and this Boletaria is a place where people lived, and this Boletaria is a place where people died. A lot of people died, and things changed, and there was a lot of corruption spread, and the people didn't look like people anymore. And this is why Demon Souls gives off a much creepier sense of, like, it just gives off a much creepier sense of familiarity. Like, it hits closer to home, because you can understand that there were people here like you. This isn't just a place with a bunch of skulls. This is a place that once functioned, now doesn't, and the world is kind of falling apart because of it. But I just took care of a dog, right? And the dogs in this game really, really fuck me off. They're not... Dogs in any game actually tend to fuck me off, because they are aggressive. They usually stun you a whole lot if if you're in a game, say, that doesn't have poise, like Demon Souls. If you get hit, they'll do a lot of poise damage. They seem to hit multiple times in one strike, which is strange. And they do a surprising amount of damage, which at the moment for me is basically any damage means I'll die. So what I had to do was just bitch poke them with the S stock with the shield up, and the dogs, I wouldn't have such a problem with them if there were only one or maybe just two, very very rarely. But what tends to happen is when you run into a dog, there's at least two more, and when enemies hit your shield, they hit your stamina as hard as they do in these games. When you have 2 or 3 dogs attacking you at once and you can't put down your shield because then you'll take damage, and you can't attack because that means you have to put down your shield again, and halfway through your attack animation you get hit and you get stunned. It's not fun, and it feels like the game's cheesing you a little bit because they're throwing 12 different hitboxes of the enemy's attacks at you at once, and you basically don't have any choice but to hope their animations line up so that they don't hit you with their attacks, or they all attack at once, and then you get a little grace period afterwards to punish them for their attacks all at once. It doesn't often happen like that, so like I said, your best bet is usually either if you have the bow and you have enough power to kill them in one hit, then just do that. But if you don't, then I recommend a spear or something like the S-stock or a rapier, just something to take care of them while your guard's up, because then I am so lucky that didn't kill me, even though it didn't really matter because I'd already completed my objective. If I'd died, I would have just gone back to the Archstone, which is actually a little bit up ahead and just down the stairs, because if you notice, this is the beginning of the mines again. So we're just going to be taking the lift up and we're going to be going to the area where the fire pit was, which is now just solid rock because we poured water onto it, and from there we can head towards Armor Spider. But yeah, like I was saying before, I am so lucky that did not kill me, because one thing you'll notice, especially they seem to bring the same shit along for Dark Souls, because the dogs in both of these games have some really, really strange, lingering hitboxes with their attacks, and usually their attacks hit much further than they look like they should, and this is something that can also happen with Flame Lurker, where he swings and then 2 meters in front of him you'll get clipped anyway, because, I don't know, I guess he turned the very air into a weapon. But I'm lucky I didn't get hit there, and it's a flaw, I think, in the game mechanics, because if you have an attack animation that's going to be that vague, then it shouldn't do as much damage as it does. And if you're going to have an attack, be that vague, then, first of all, why are you having an attack be that vague? I'm not saying all attacks you should be able to recognize straight away, but you should be able to reasonably be able to react to anything that you come across in a game, because otherwise, if you literally can't expect something and you can't react to it, isn't that what we these days define as cheap? This is something that we couldn't have known that was coming, and that punishes us for not knowing the future. And it's because of these vague attack animations that why I take care of the what are they called? These guys with the pickaxes, and especially the guys with the spears. In the Valley of Defilement, there are some guys that look a lot like these, but they have spears and they have red hot perkers at the end. Sorry, they just have fire at the end. And the first hit of their combo that they do with that spear does a lot of damage, and it'll just seem to hit you before they've even moved the weapon. So you just get instantaneously hit, and I think that's a little bit cheap. So that's one of my gripes about this. But this is Armor Spider, and I think I'm taking a pause here because I'm either having a drink or I'm nervous. Probably a bit both. Having a drink because I'm nervous. And Armor Spider, I initially thought that he was a bit of a cheat boss because he spams his projectile attacks, and he always does that little flick with his two front legs, and I think that it's really hard to avoid, but it's actually not. He's actually a very, very fair boss. He's very pattern-based, and he's a little bit luck-based, but the only reason I ever tend to die against him is because of what just happened then. I just mistimed a dodge, and that was it. Because he'll always open up with his first attack, which is either this 3 volley of fire, or a web shot attack that sticks to you and makes you slow. And then once you're up close, he'll only do these claw attacks, or he'll drop down. And when he drops down, you can capitalize on it and get a few good hits off him like that. And all you have to do is roll through that attack there and hit him a few times like that. And then, luckily for me, he decided like having a rest and he flopped down again. And this is how the fight went, because this took me about 4 or 5 tries, and I managed to get a little bit lucky with his patterns, but also it sort of, you know that moment where a boss kind of clicks, like the timing to dodge an attack just clicks with you, and all of a sudden you understand the ins and outs, and that's when you can take care of it. And look, he just got tired again, so I don't know if that's pre-programmed, because I don't know, but I think I got lucky, I'm not sure, but there we go. There's Armor Spider down, a boss that I thought would take a lot longer than it did, and I managed to not cheese him with a bow, which was something I'm fairly proud of, because damn does cheesing with a bow look pretty easy. Anyway, that's been this episode. This is Stonefang Tunnel 2-1. Got some pure spider stone there. I hope you've enjoyed